Welcome to HR Masters, a podcast where we sit down and talk about key learnings and best practices with the masters of human resources. Find us through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms. Now sit back, turn it up, and get ready to get your masters in HR with our host, Jordi Romero.
Hello, welcome to HR Masters. Today we have Alexa from Comtravo. Alexa is one of our first guests. Thank you so much for being here, Alexa. How are you doing?
Thank you, I'm fine. Hopefully you're doing too.
The idea of this podcast is to talk to HR leaders, people with experience working in high growth companies, people who learned a lot along the way, and as we were talking earlier, people who are willing to share this knowledge and tips and insider information that they wish they known earlier. So can you introduce yourself a little bit? Like, how did you get into being HR at Comtravo? What did you do before, Alexa?
Yeah, sure. I started studying psychology a few years ago, and that's if you study psychology, there are two ways. You're going to be a therapist, and the other option is that you're going to HR. That's what lots of people do, and I decided to go into HR, and I did that at a company called Open Grid Europe, which is a venture of E.ON, which is a very big company in Germany. I learned a lot there. It's a very, very big company with lots of a lot of structure and processes and that are defined. So it's not a very flexible work environment. But I learned a lot there and enjoyed the time there. But afterwards I decided to work in a more dynamic environment and decided to move to Berlin and find something in the startup environment. And the company I started working that time was HelloFresh, which is today also a very big company, but these days we're around about 350, I think, people working there.
So what did you join as? When you joined HelloFresh, what was your position or your mission there at the company?
Yeah, at first I joined as an executive assistant to the board. Because this was a way to learn a lot about the company. But after a few weeks, to be honest, there was such a big pressure on our HR team, and it was a very small team, although the company was quite big at that point of time. And since I had that very strong HR background, we decided that I moved to the HR department, and I started building up the HR administration structure and the HR administration department. I also did a little bit of recruiting there, but mainly focusing on the administration part.
Okay.
After HelloFresh, because I did my bachelor's in psychology, so after finishing that, I didn't want to start my master's then, but I made the decision that I want to do it in the future anytime. And after working at HelloFresh, I decided to do my master's then, and also in clinical psychology, which is until today quite helpful because you learn a lot about people and how they think and how they behave and what they need. And I did that for 1.5 years, and after that I decided to go back to HR, to the HR business. And then Michael, the CEO of Comtravo, asked me if I want to be the lead in the people and culture department here at Comtravo. And this was, let me think about it, in December 2017. So I joined the company in January 2018. And since then, I'm leading the head of the people and culture department as the head of the people and culture here. And people and culture here at Comtravo means it's office and field management, HR, and talent acquisition. And so that's...
Okay, so tell us a little bit, what is Comtravo? What does the company do? How many people are you? How many people were you when you joined? A little bit, the size and context of this company.
Mm-hmm. So we are doing business travel management. So, which is quite cool also for people who work in the HR department, because it's something you have to deal with in these departments. What we are doing is we make traveling for business people quite simple, like the trip booking, and also the expense management. And yeah, so when I joined, we were around about 50 people. Mm-hmm. And now we are around about 90, let's say around about 100 people, because there are lots of lots of students also working here, but in this office we're around about 100 people. And so we grew quite fast last year.
You doubled the team in a year, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, which is something kind of common for HR. So funny enough, you joined Comtravo when the company was around 50 people. And my main question for you today is, I would like to discuss, when do you think companies should bring in HR? Like, how do you measure that the company, is ready for HR, needs HR, is not too late? Should it be a little bit too late? How should we go about it?
Yeah, if you ask me, you should have an HR person, better earlier than too late, because so I think it's quite trivial that when you have like 10 people or something, then you don't need an HR person. But I think at around about 25 people, you should start looking for someone who's doing HR, because then it's a size when like teams, you start to build up different teams, and then there's the need of like bringing these teams together, holding them together. Then you have leadership questions and skills that have to be developed and to be solved, problems to be solved there. And so at that point of time, I'm pretty sure everyone needs an HR person. And but my experience is that lots of people or lots of companies, have at round about 50 or 60 people. They have the first HR person. So this is, in my mind, this is too late, because then you have some structures, and you have some structures in your teams, which is where it's very very difficult for someone from the outside coming in and then telling you, okay, so please do it like that, or please manage your team like that, or you know what I mean. So this is quite difficult then, and
Okay, so somewhere between 25 and 50 people, depends maybe on the growth rate, no? I guess if it takes you 10 years to go up to 50 employees, then maybe you can stay a little bit longer without HR. If you go as fast as you guys did, probably justifies bringing in somebody from HR a little bit earlier. I see a lot of young companies, especially startups or fast-growing companies. The first thing they think of when somebody mentions HR is actually talent acquisition or recruiting. What do you think are the first key areas that HR should cover the company? You think the first issue is just growing the team, or you think there is something with a higher priority that should be taken care of?
Yeah, I think growing the team is the most important issue, because this is directly connected to growth. So, and I'm sorry, there's some noise here, but hopefully this is not disturbing too much. So talent acquisition and recruiting is the most important thing. That's obviously the most important thing. But I think that building up a culture from the beginning on is also quite important, because what I mentioned before, if you have then around about 40 or 50 people there who have their own way of interacting and working together, then it starts it's quite difficult then to adjust something there. And if you have someone from an earlier stage on, from the beginning on, 20 or 25 people, and who helps your leadership team to build up these teams and to build up processes and working modes, this can be very helpful, I think.
You mentioned a couple of different concepts. One of them is you need to be building the culture. how do you do that? I think it's easier said than done. What does HR do for building or fostering the culture? And the other question would be, what should the founders do around culture?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what can HR do is, so the easiest or end of course the most important thing is making sure that you have kind of like a consistency in your leadership, so that you don't have leaders that have a completely different leadership style and completely different ideas of how to manage people and of how to develop people and develop structures, internal structures. I think this is a very, very important point. Yeah, and then what can HR do on top of that? So I think one very, very important thing is talking to people and listening, and like making sure that people's needs and yeah, kind of like wishes, that they are heard. And because this makes like, and I think this is one of the most important functions of HR in a growing team, is that you're kind of like a speaker for the people. So a speaker who can collect things, wishes, and yeah, things like that from your team, and talk about that with the management team or with the CEO or the C-level in general. And yeah, this is, and because another very important thing is that you don't lose the people you have and you invested a lot of time in. And yeah, talking and listening to and with people is something that, yeah, it's no guarantee that you can that you don't have a low turnover rate or something, but it's a good way to like detect if people are yeah, on their way to leave the company or are looking for something else, And this is something which is a very big problem in young companies, because you invest a lot of time in hiring people, but if you lose lots of people, yeah, then you have to hire double, So this is
Absolutely. So, interesting topic. You keep bringing in new ideas before I can move on to the previous one I had listed out. You said, there can be some signs such as a higher turnover rate than is healthy, which is a sign that the company maybe has growing pains and maybe HR needs to do something about it. How do you know though, when you're a company that's young and doesn't have like a comparable history? What is a high turnover rate? Do you just know? Or do you think there are some like easy rule of thumb, KPIs, ratios that you can say, well, if you lose 10% of your team within 3 months, then you should do something about it? Or
Yeah. No, there are some statistics about that. Like a few years ago, this wouldn't be possible, because like this whole startup thing and young company thing is not that old, So, but today we have some statistics about that, and in the field of, or in the startup field environment, a turnover rate of around about 18%, sorry, yeah, it's normal. So you're good when you're, and this means that you lose 18% of your people in 1 year.
Okay, so that means if you're 50 employees and 9 leave during 1 year, you're at the limit of what is okay. If you lose like 15 or 14 employees,
then you're on average.
That's the average. Okay, that's not the limit. Okay, but you want to be usually, like below the average on any bad metric, such as employee turnover.
Yeah, and in bigger and older companies, they have turnover rates from around about like 10 to 12%. So that's a bit.
Okay, that's super interesting. Thanks for sharing, Alexa. So going back to my previous point, you mentioned also not just the cultural part and some KPIs or metrics or indicators that something might be getting out of hand. You also mentioned a couple of times like sizes of companies where things happen. No, there is this concept of Danvers number, which is somewhere between 100 and 250, which are the people that, as a person you can know kind of well enough, and magically this happens in companies. I have the theory that there is not just one number, that there's probably like mini Dunbar numbers and then max Dunbar numbers that happen. Like for instance, when we were like less than 15 people, no rule was written. Everything was known by everybody, right? Now we're like 40 few people, and sometimes, you know, I ask everybody around the room to raise their hand if they don't know everybody's name. And for the last few weeks, everybody's still raising their hand, you know, and I'm like, come on, it's only 40 few of us. Like, you can know 40 few names, but, you know, people keep coming and they don't have time to catch up. What would be your approach to, you know, when a company does like these structural changes? What numbers would you think are like relatively important in HR for a growing company?
Yeah, so one number is the number of HR team members you need at certain points of time. So it's like two weeks ago, I read something quite interesting from a company here in Germany. And they are doing a lot of HR. They have a blog and they have a very advanced HR management system. And they said that companies between 0 or between 1 and 250 employees, which is something most of the startups have, they need 3.5 people in the HR team per 100 people working there. So which means a company with 100 people needs 3.5 HR people to manage them. And this means you need like 7 for 200, and then this number falls a little bit. So between 250 and 500, I think you need only 1.8 HR persons per 100 employees. So I think this is something I can go along with, because I think that you need, for example, if you have 100 employees and plan to be like 150 in the next year, which means 50 people more plus the turnover, which means you need to hire, let's say, 60, 65 people in 1 year. Then to manage them, you need at least 1.5 people in the HR administration team. You need at least 2 recruiters, but better 3. And then you maybe need one team lead or head of HR, people and culture, whatever. And so office management is excluded there in these statistics. So this is, I think, a very important number, because especially so in the recruiting, it's kind of like a bottleneck you can have. If you don't have enough recruiters, then it's a real big issue for growth, you know. So
do you know any, or how do you decide how many do you have at Comtravo right now, for instance?
We have at the moment we have 2 here.
And how do you what's the productivity of a recruiter? Is it per open positions? Like one person can handle up to so many open positions, or how do you measure that? We are not really, to be honest, at the moment we're not really measuring it, but you can say that, so we are handling them quite well, the open positions, and we have around about 15 positions per recruiter, and this works quite well. And I think so recruiter is able to manage around about 20 positions, but then it's not a whole cycle recruiting, you know. So then it's not this contract thing and not the onboarding. Then you need to have someone else who's doing that. Okay, so you would say this recruiter is not just finding the right person, but also welcoming them to the company, making sure this person has a good first few weeks and the whole process. Okay, interesting. Before we wrap up, I think I'd like to ask you, if you could go a few years earlier, what did you wish somebody told you?
Sorry, the last part I didn't get that. Sorry.
So the question is, like, imagine you can go a few years back, and then older you would come to you and say, you should know this, you should be careful about that, or this is a really important advice. What would that be?
That goes along with something I said before. That would be hire enough recruiters if you want to hire lots of people and if you want to grow. So this is really a very, very important thing. And having a very good office manager is also quite helpful, because an office manager is a person who's able to make people in the office so happy and to help them a lot. And that's one of the things you can do for having a good culture, is a very good office manager.
So is office management something that falls inside the HR organization?
For me, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So let me bring back the first question. When should you get an office manager?
Mm-hmm. You should get an office manager at round about 40 people, I think, 40 to 50 people. Yeah, because an office manager is not an HR person, but an office manager is, as I mentioned before, is someone who's quite close to the people, and who, on another level than an HR manager, for example, is. And because people are, lots of people are not coming to the HR team and are complaining, for example, about something, but they are going to the office manager and telling them their complaints and their issues and things like that. So this is kind of like an kind of like a spy.
I was thinking the same. It's like an undercover. It's an undercover HR person, no?
Yeah, but in a positive way, you know. So an office manager is someone who's executing lots of the people or lots of the culture things, you know. So for example, if you this is a very simple thing, but if you have lots of different drinks in the office, for example, or fresh fruit or something, then most of the employees don't really think that's from the HR department, but they think it's from the office manager, you know. So it's the office manager is doing that for me, and and this is why I think an office manager absolutely belongs to the HR team.
Okay, interesting. It's like the good cop and the undercover HR person of the company.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Alexa, that was super helpful. That's about it. Thank you so much for your time. We're very happy and proud of having you here as one of our first HR masters. And thanks for your time.
Thank you. Highly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for following us. We will keep publishing a new episode every week. Bye-bye.
If you like this, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to tune in next week to HR Masters.